Good morning and welcome. My name is Andre Donald, and welcome to another in the series of press conferences as hosted by the New National Party. Today with us is the political leader of the New National Party, who's going to be the one who's going to answer all your questions this morning. To all those who have just joined us on the live, top of the morning to you, and to all the media practitioners who have joined us this morning, top of the morning to you also. As I did indicate, in my presence this morning is the political leader of the New National Party, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Claudius Mitchell. And what is going to happen is that he's going to make an opening statement, and after which the members of the media present here and those virtually, he will be grilled by them, I dare say, in many different areas. So let me introduce this morning's featured guest, Dr. Keith Mitchell. Good morning, Dr. Mitchell.
Good morning, Andre, and of course, good morning to all our listeners throughout the length and breadth of the Spice Country of Grenada, Carriacou, and Piedmont. I believe the last time. Yes. Thank you, Andre, and of course, good morning to all our listeners throughout the length and breadth of the Spice Country of Grenada, Carriacou, and Piedmont. I believe it's about a month plus since we had a session of this nature. But I want to make it a clear announcement this morning that we intend to do a monthly such meeting so that to bring the nation up to date as to our views on issues confronting the country and offer ideas in some cases as to how some of the challenges can be met. And of course, to listen to the audience about any areas of concerns as it relates to the work of the opposition, New National Party. I'm becoming, it's right now, as we meet, it is about 1.25 plus years since the last general elections. In other words, the present government has been there literally almost going to 16 months. And it's customary that a new government, must be given an opportunity to find its feet, so to speak. But after a year or 16 months plus, it's about time that we see something tangible as far as the governance of the country is concerned. And I must say that I'm becoming increasingly concerned about the state of governance of the country. After being in Parliament for over 40 years, and I have to repeat that because some of the things I'm saying today is becoming more and more shocking and frightening. A number of issues that this country is having to face that we literally have not seen that in the past. We have had problems, successive governments, but I am a bit worried that some of the decisions that are being taken are decisions taken that have far-reaching implications to the country's future viability and image. An example, the clear deterioration of the governance within the public service is frightening. Previous governments, including previous NDC government, initiated serious resources on public sector reform and ensuring that we can improve on the management of the public service as it serves the people of the country. So lots of resources were spent by successive governments, as I mentioned, NDC, NNP. and systems were put in place. They were not perfect. There were a number of weaknesses still, but there were serious issues related to how things should be done. But what we have seen now is literally a destruction of all that we have worked for and put in place and spent millions for. For example, people have been hired in the public service without any criteria. People have been promoted into top position within the public service, and no one can understand how and why. No explanation has been given. People have been transferred left, right, and center. Not that transferring people over the years have not been done by other governments, including NNP, but the worry is that it appears to be based purely on the basis of perceived political affiliation, which is quite worrying. Similarly, the police force, which of course is fundamental to the stability of our democracy. The police force have been, in my view, based on all that I've seen, it's been literally destroyed in many respects. The leadership of the police force, of course, have been dealt a serious blow, negatively so, by this government. And we have seen a lot of issues of crime, including murders, which appear to be unsolved, or the country knows absolutely nothing about the state of those investigations. I intend to speak more to that later because it's worrying about the image of the country. But the morale of the police force and the public service is of serious concern. And I'm not here to say that the public service or the police force did not have a moral problem under other governments, but this is by far the worst we have seen it. Similarly, the institutions like Parliament. I've been in Parliament, as I mentioned, for so many years. I've never seen this. Some of the decisions that are being taken and some of the initiatives, and now, of course, the running of the affairs of the Parliament must concern me. I wouldn't say a lot more on this because I do have called on the Speaker of the House for a session, and I intend to meet him tomorrow. So I will, in fact, give him details as to some of the major concerns, in addition to what I've already said, and people have seen me in Parliament in that respect. So I'm worried about the construct and what is happening in our Parliament at this time. The FIU, an arm of the police, of the security of the country, which was defined historically by regional international observers, one of the best FIU in the region. Today have been undermined, most of the key officers whose political affiliation we did not know. What we knew was the professional work of the police officers. And that institution has been undermined to the point that it's almost becoming an arm of the ruling party in government. I'm also worried about what is taking place with the GIS is becoming literally, appears to be an arm of the political organization in this country. The GIS has comprised public servants. And I don't know they have signed on to pushing a political line of an organization. To the point that GIS is being used to publicize and advertise activities of a political organization, which is not in keeping. All sorts of media activities which is aligned politically with the government has been broadcast at this point in time through GIS facilities. The taxpayers of the country is the one who pay for these services of GIS. So I'm concerned about that. In addition of my worry my dear brothers and sisters, is the fact that it seems that we are governed with more and more lies every day. It seems like everyone feels that they can tell the nation anything they wish, and there must be no accountability, and the nation has no right, or some of us have no right to even question. Sometimes you get the impression the behavior is almost childish, amateurish, because it does not help the perception of the leadership of the government institution. An example of some of the major lies, and we have umpteen of them. One recall the so-called Polish ambassador. When the leadership of the country makes an announcement to the region, to the nation, and the international community that previous government was given a certain amount of money by a Polish ambassador at large, and only a certain amount were deposited in the treasury, the implication is that the previous government stole the taxpayers' money. I was then, during that period, the chairman of cabinet, and they claimed that they had a cabinet conclusion. So we challenged them. Members of the media challenged them. Other organizations challenged them to provide the copy of that conclusion. Up to today, not a single word, a major lie by a supposedly responsible person in the country. And they do as if it never existed, but that one will never die. The issue of contract work, we are told that contract work was illegal. And a lawyer is the one saying this. There's more contract work today than even before. And everyone knows that contract work is almost a major area of initiative of government throughout the world, throughout the Caribbean, throughout the region, throughout the world. So clearly another major lie. And no one can say that was because the government is young and inexperienced. No, a lie is a lie. You have to, whether you are experienced, you are whatever, you are now a serious position of governance in a country. You cannot be telling such blatant lies. The Imani was told that they would get major additional services. And of course, many of them become permanent. Today, many of them are home. And some salaries or the benefits that we gave them, some have been cut. And you wonder, what is the purpose? Making these young people feel that at this level we can't be trusted. Another major lie. Even the issue of free services for schools, which is obviously another lie. There's a portion of services given by the government. Historically, government have been providing help to schools, free tuition, free services, free this and so on. But to tell people that you're now getting free and to find out that those who cannot afford to buy basic services to go to school, to transportation allowance, to be able to have a meal, nothing has been there for them. Under previous government, there was systems put in place to aid the young people achieving a level of education, because we have to accept it. Although this government seems to imply that we shouldn't talk about poor people. I saw the government side pounding the table when they were told that NNP loved to talk about poor people because we want to keep people poor. I've never heard something more ridiculous, uncaring, lacking empathy than this. And to see them pounding the table, young men and women who I assume came from poor families, supporting such a statement, it's frightening. But that's the nature of what we have today. But that's another lie about the schools. And I had a program this morning where that was being articulated by my former Minister of Youth, Minister Kate Lewis, challenging the government about that position. The issue of, we heard that the NNP, they did not have problem. They had problems with medication at the hospital because the NNP did not pay. They owe $2 million to the OECS medical facility. Another clearly total lie. The implication as if we did not pay what we had to pay. The OECS facilities, they obtain services for governments and we pay them as the bills come in. So it's normal to owe something. But even if we did owe, the previous government, NDC government, when we came into government in 2013, owed $8 million. And we didn't make noise, and we didn't make excuse for not having basic, fundamental, life-saving medication as an excuse. We did not do that because we don't think when you're in government, it's about providing services. Blaming the opposition and blaming the previous government does not solve it. The reason the government was removed, people felt that the new government can, in fact, improve on what we were doing before. So to keep blaming the government and showing weaknesses in all areas, or most areas, is fundamentally flawed. Another policy governance issue is the victimization. There's something called, and a serious leader in the government, in the leadership area of the government, talk about what they call restorative justice. What kind of language is this? In a small democracy as ours, in any democracy. Implication is that we come here to victimize and hurt people based on what they perceive relationships of the past. The firing of workers, hundreds of workers on the breadline today, summarily fired. Sometimes they just get a letter today for a few days later not to come back to work. As if these people are not Grenadians who are not paying taxes. As if they have no family, no loved ones to care for. These are people, in many cases, who are poor and vulnerable. Let me keep repeating the word poor and vulnerable. I love poor and vulnerable people. This is what I'm hearing. Nonsense. But I'm making the point. How could we seriously not understand that you cannot be in a small environment like ours? This is a family society. You victimize one, sometimes you victimize a village. But this is the policy of the government. And they seem to be extremely happy. When they're boasting about getting rid of people, they seem to be extremely happy. Throwing people from the breadline is what they call restorative justice. It's unfortunate where we are. So I'm concerned, in a general sense, about all these issues. There are clearly a number of other areas that we can talk about. But I think it's about time. The economic situation in the country is frightening. With the workers, many of them left on the breadline, many of them thrown off from the breadline, have to find fun for themselves. You can see what is taking place. I've heard some members of the government say, how do we know that the economy is so bad? It's bad. Well, if you live in Grenada, you don't need some economist or some mathematician or someone to come and give you numbers about what people feeling in the country. If you representing people and you walk around and you just move around, you ought to feel the temperature in the population. It's not difficult. It is not magic. It's not an intellectual exercise. So it's a bit amazing to hear someone saying, how do we know? Just pass through the streets where you normally see people gathering and doing things and helping themselves, selling and buying and so on. And it's dead. And this is something you see all over the place. Every single area you go to some of the churches, they tell you the collection boxes are lower, much lower today than it was to be before. The collection boxes come from, the resources they come from people, their congregation. And if they're not working, and if they're thrown out from the work, if they have no jobs, then clearly you have serious issues confronting them. So my own feeling is we have to take stock. And this concentration of trying to always thinking of just certain level of persons in this society, those who can afford to fend for themselves are the ones seem to be what the government is concerned about. It could restorative justice with respect to this whole issue of the Jubilee Bay development. What the government is doing on that particular project, which I hope we will deal with more later, is beyond anyone's imagination. There was an arbitration process going forward. You intervene and literally accepting liability on behalf of the country, agreeing to acquire, not agreeing, acquiring the facility with all the implication of the shareholders who have invested through the CBI program, and the fact that you may be liable to the tune of millions of dollars to those persons, and the country will be liable. And talking about paying the investor who used our passport money to invest in the project. This is Grenada's CBI program. This is not someone coming in and like Silver Sands and investing millions of dollars. It's through the CBI program. Now you are going to talk about paying those persons. And we have facts to show that this thing makes absolutely no sense. But accepting liability like they've done in so many other projects, the country can be left holding the bag in so many areas. And I put this down to arrogance, ignorance, and the lack of understanding of the implication or care for the problems that the country can face. We have not seen the last of this. A next government coming in the bag may be left for them, which is clearly cannot be in the interests of the country. So I will continue to articulate those, and I will continue to do what I have to do. As one who has served this country as Prime Minister for 23 years, although some may want to forget that, whose record is there, I will continue to, and I will continue to see that the Parliament, the parliamentary principles and the activities of Parliament is in keeping with the Founding Fathers and those who have served those institutions as Speakers of the House and different leaders of the House who will be watching at us today. I will continue to articulate that and do what I have to do in the interest of not just my political party, in fact, more so, the country of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. So I rest my case at this point in time, Andre, and therefore you take over from here. I will then be able to address any issues or questions. And remember, I have always said this, I'm not afraid of have a problem. After all my years of experience, I have no difficulty dealing with any questions someone asks. So feel free to ask the questions as you see fit.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mitchell. And it's about time for me to lay the ground rules. But just before I do that, Dr. Mitchell, I could say, well, based on all the information that you've given us for the past 15 minutes or so, I could say to the guys, let's wrap it. Let's take a wrap on this because this is enough information for the next couple of weeks. And that is based on information that one normally gets from government because you don't really get any information from them. So what you have said in one morning or 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes in one morning is what is more than what they would have given the nation in more than 10 months. But nonetheless, we have a guest online here. We do have a guest from WFM. Oh, no, we don't. I thought we did have somebody here from WFM. But we have my very good friend, Linda Straker. Good morning to you. I see that you're there on the live. my media friends at MTV News, top of the morning. Also, good morning to my media friends at the Grenada Broadcasting Network, a former workplace of mine. Nancy McGuire. Nancy, I have not seen you in quite some time, lady. I trust that you're doing fine. And also there is Patrick Shaggy Duncan. And that is the person I saw from WeFM, Patrick Shaggy Duncan. And also got to say good morning to Hamlet Mark. I see you in on the live. Good morning to you, Hamlet. How are you doing today? Trust that everything is fine with you. So here are the ground rules, my friends. It's very, very simple. We have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 persons on. And what is going to happen is that we are going to allow you, when you raise your hand to indicate who wants to, we allow you 2 questions to start with going forward. And based on time, we come back around and a question per person, and we do that until our time is finished. I believe that we have gone through about 25 minutes of the first hour. I'll get an indication from my technical people. Yes, we've gone through about 25 minutes of the first hour. So that gives us indication that we have, just about 35 minutes. So it depends on how quick you get the questions in, how quick Dr. Mitchell is able to respond. And I'm just seeing another person chipping in here. I think it's MTV again, indicating that. So, you heard the ground rules, and let's keep it nice, keep it simple. KIS, that's what it is? Yeah, keep it simple. And so the floor is open, and who's the first person that would like to put the questions to Dr. Mitchell? Remember that you have 2 questions. You can ask the first question, and when he finishes answering the first question, then you ask the second question. So who's going to be first? Do we have someone who is already linked up? I'm not seeing a hand raised. I don't know if my technical people are seeing anybody there who would have raised their hand. So, here's what's going to happen. Be that as it may, I'm going to give you some time to digest all the information that Dr. Mitchell would have given you. And I will ask my first question here. Dr. Mitchell, you spoke about this, and it jolted me here. And I remember seeing it in Parliament, and I want you to expound on it a bit more for us. You would be making noise, not you per se, but you'll be making noise, slamming tables when information goes about keeping the poor poor. What is that? And as they say, who does that, Dr. Mitchell?
Well, the only time I've seen that happen is in the parliament that we now have in this country on the other side. And it's a clear indication of their immaturity and the lack of understanding of their fundamental responsibility to the people of the country. In my own view, Andre, a government that is elected by the people of the country, which NDC has been, has a fundamental responsibility to initiate issues and of course, deal with concerns at all sectors of the society. But clearly, a government must have a specific focus on dealing and helping the vulnerable, because they need government more than anybody else. So it seems to me to imply that we discussing and talking about issues where the poor are treated badly, that means we love the poor. The implication is that we want to keep them poor, which is what is being said. In fact, it's the complete opposite. It is by mentioning them and mentioning their plight, we are actually saying to take decisions which will help to lift them from poverty. I came from a very poor family, and if I had not been given some of the help that we're talking about, I would not be sitting here. And most of them on the other side. In fact, I know 3 of them whose father I know, in some case played cricket with. And I know they came from poor people. In one case, one father worked with me. And I know that he had to struggle to take care of his son who is now in Parliament. So I can understand how anyone coming from this background can be knocking the table and clapping when it is said that NMP just want you to care a lot about poor people because they want to keep people poor. Absolute nonsense. I am shocked, Andrew. I heard it, and I'm sitting there at loss because I cannot understand how anyone could be making a statement like this, particularly in light of the fact they're supposed to be representing a good group, a mass of poor people in their own constituencies. Frightening indeed.
I believe we have Nancy Maguire. I believe we have Nancy Maguire. And Nancy, good morning to you. And let's go with your first question.
Good morning, and good morning to everybody listening, and Dr. Keith. After you left Parliament the other day, the Prime Minister said that before the last election, you all sold Bain-Hartman for $40 million, $20 million first installment. And I wondered if you could elaborate on those accusations.
Well, I don't. Nancy, well, good morning, Nancy. It's good to hear you. The Prime Minister, of course, making a lot of statements. I don't know the context in which he was talking. I'm not aware. I can't tell you a specific of what he said because I did not hear it. You mentioned it. But the Prime Minister has a track record of telling things to the nation that's not true. You know, so I don't know what he has said and what aspects of it is true or false. I'll have to listen to what he has said. Because
what he basically said was that you sold it to pay for the Grenada shares.
No, that's absolutely false.
Right.
I don't know that Grenada share was bought based on resources of government. We didn't, whatever we did in one area doesn't necessarily mean that money goes specifically there. But anyhow, government makes decision what is considered to be the best interests of the country. So, as I said, I would have to hear and see the details of what he said, not just a tidbits of what you have mentioned, because clearly I have little confidence in the Prime Minister making statements implying accusation against people without basically understanding, or even, in my view, some cases deliberately twisting facts for that purpose. And you don't have to go far. As I gave you examples of some of the things the Prime Minister said himself. The accusation against us and the Polish ambassador is not a joke. It's a serious offense. And he has not apologized up to today. He has not said a word. And before he says any other thing or accuse anybody of anything else, he needs to come and explain that one and others that he has said. Contract work is illegal and so on. Talk about that. Then we will start listening to you in other areas. Until you do that, it's very difficult to seriously take anyone who makes statements like that seriously.
Nancy, your second question?
Yes, sir. On the ground, you're on the ground and you're hearing a lot from people, and that's where you're picking up a lot of the information about the status of people's families and such. And on the ground, I trust that's also part of the NNP getting itself organized on the ground. So may I ask a question about that, sir? How is it going?
No, I'm satisfied with Nancy. You know, historically, the NNP has been seen as a party who represents the people, the poor and vulnerable people, generally speaking, in the country, while it represents all sectors of the society and has links there. The NNP has consistently over the years, and to show you why that is in fact truthful, When the NNP lost most seats in 1990, we just won 2 seats. The NNP was down on the ground, working with people at all levels, and particularly the rural portion of the country. And within 5 years, the NNP were back in the government. In 2008, when we lost government, the NNP went back again on the ground. And within 5 years, the NNP won all seats. So we are now in the process again, working with people at all levels in the society and organizing. That's why, Nancy, we've been consistently saying there's some people in and out of our own political party that have been advocating convention what? You lost an election. Clearly, you lost the ground because we literally gifted this election to the NDC. They didn't actually win. And it was our fault in the lack of organization and the lack of contact with the ground that we lost. So to go and have convention without organizing your party and putting systems and structures in place, it would be absolutely politically backward and foolish. And the NNP will not operate in that manner. So we are on the ground. The work is taking place. I cannot tell you that I'm extremely happy with the work in every single area of the country, but we are certainly working and will continue to do so, consistently so, going forward.
Thank you very much, Nancy. As we move on, I see Linda Straker with her hand up. Good morning, Linda. How are you doing, my dear?
Good morning to you, Andre, and everyone else at this news conference. I have a number of questions, but you said 2 to start, and I'm going to give you my 2. In 2013, when the NNP took over the reign of government, one of the first declarations from Dr. Mitchell was that the country was unable to pay its debt. Subsequent to that, there had been a number of agreements and so forth. But one of the things coming out of that was Grenada's decision that the CBI earnings would assist in the payment of bonds in 2020. Can Dr. Mitchell explain to us, me and the public, what that agreement requires the government to do with regard to the bonds that are due in 2030, as it involves the CBI money?
Good morning, Linda. Let me say this. I think this is a very important question. You're right. In 2013, we had a serious problem in the fiscal situation in the country. As you recall, the government then, in 2008, 2013, had to be borrowing and monies and selling assets to pay salaries. And anytime you're in that position, that business or institution would be in trouble sooner or later. So clearly when we came in, there was no such money. Unlike what the present government now himself admitted that they met hundreds of millions of dollars when they came in. I wish when we came in 2013, we had not that, but a quarter or a tenth of that. So in the process of going forward, you have to plan how you're going to develop your economy, get out of the position. So we involve stakeholders at all levels, the unions, the business community, the churches, and all institutions, non-governmental organizations, because we see this is our country. If the government fails, everyone fails. If we fail to do what we're doing. So we got buy-in from all the social partners. And we put systems in place. And one of the conditions that we had when we got into the CBI program, by the way, the CBI program was defined by elements of this government as an unacceptable program, and that we are just cheap selling Grenada's passport and birthright and so on, and therefore it was immoral and wrong. Well, it's strange to see the same government, a party that said that, with its leadership at the time, and now today selling about 3 times or facilitating about 3 times the level of applications that our government did. In fact, we were very thorough in terms of the security checks before we apply. But one of the things we did, and we said, grant money that we receive, CBI resources, a good percentage of it must go towards meeting our debt, that the bonds and so on you mentioned, and other debts that we have, and to do capital projects, not to invest into recurrent expenditure. In other words, the government must manage itself with its tax revenues and other resources of government to be able to meet its fundamental recurrent expenditure and to have savings that you can add to the grant and CBI resources that you receive to do capital projects and to meet the debts of the country. That is what we did. And that is why the government moved, Linda, from a debt to GDP ratio of almost 110% to almost 60% within a few years. In other words, we were not looking just at NNP's time in government. We were looking at the future of the country. So our children and grandchildren's future will not be jeopardized. So what you're seeing today is complete opposite. We are seeing increasing levels of expenditure that you find very frightening. The travels of ministers and some members of the government side is about twice, 2.5 times that what more than 3 times, sorry, of what the NNP used to be. Our government ensure that when you travel, there must be a basis for that travel. And the cabinet had to approve it. And ministers have to defend that travel if it's going to cost government. But appears that all that has gone out of the window. And therefore, we are facing a situation today, Linda, that is pretty frightening as far as these issues are concerned. I'm worried, and I said at the beginning, I'm quite worried about where we're going as far as the development of the country is concerned.
Second question, Linda?
Yes, my second question has to do, last week was the upper house. And the recent lower house sitting, they approved the main item on the agenda was the supplementary budget of 143 million.
48.
40, right. Mm-hmm. So you have the figures correct.
Yes.
Among that were, in your deliberations, you described it as the supplementary with the most or the biggest additional in terms of seeking new money.
Yes, yes.
I think there are a lot of people who do not understand what you would have meant when you say that. Can you take this opportunity to explain what is a supplementary budget, and two, why did you say that this was the largest in terms of additional revenue?
Supplementary means what it says. You plan to do certain things and you have certain amount of resources to do that. And during a period of time that those issues have to be dealt with, you realize that there isn't enough resources, right, to do that particular activity or activities. So you supplement your original revenues with additional resources, and the question is where it comes from. So that is what you mean by supplementary resources. That's what you mean by that. No, so I was making the point. A budget, Linda, talks about all ministries. It projects revenues and expenditure for all ministries. And it shows where the revenues are coming from, how you get savings to do capital projects, as I mentioned before. So it means, therefore, that as you move forward in terms of the revenues that you have, that if you have to do additional activities, the government, therefore, has to come with additional resources. And the question is, where does it come from? Now, if you have some areas, particularly like the Ministry of Works, for example, or the Prime Minister's ministry, any ministry, you might realize by the time you are now at the 8th month of the year, you did not spend all that you had projected. I mean, there would be savings there. or some activities that you plan may not be done again. So that means you have some savings. So what you could do is reallocate those resources to any additional areas that you need resources for, as I mentioned, to supplement. So that is therefore not a problem, because you're not bringing in, you're not getting additional resources in terms of expenditure. You are using the resources that you already budgeted. So it would still come under supplemental budget because you're moving it from one area to another. But it's not a problem. Similarly, if you get grants during the year like we used to get, or you have extra revenue from CBI, you bring that into the system. That's grant. So that's not additional resources because they are grant support. But if you go into loans, as the government has predicted, if you go into taking further loan, that you take in additional resources. It means, therefore, you put in more burden on the country. And that is where the problem is. So while you may have $148 million, suppose in the NNP was in office, you have $148 million in supplementary budget. But we would have gathered savings in several areas. So you might see a minimal amount of asking for additional resources. Similarly, in this case, we did not see that. The government did not even understand that they could have moved resources from one area and make the fiscal situation look better. In fact, we were advising them, Linda, to take that route to make themselves look better and to make the country look better. But clearly, my own impression, they did not understand. They did not understand. And I'm quite worried, because you must have NDC. The NDC was in government several times before, at least 2 occasions. And I'm pretty sure there must be elements in NDC in the past who understand this. So if this President Bunch was even talking to elements in NDC in the past, I'm pretty sure that they would have been able to advise them about these basic and fundamental principles of management of the country. But it appears the level of arrogance mixed with the level of ignorance is a mixture that's almost like a bomb. And it's frightening and affecting the lives of the people. I would suggest to them, they wouldn't have taken any advice from Keith Mitchell or the NNP. So we're not expecting that, because that we have seen the attitude of behavior. But then I'm sure there are elements in the NDC in the past. I wouldn't call names. If they asked them, they would prepare a better supplementary budget. They'll prepare the management of the country would be better. I'm not saying it might be satisfactory to NNP, might still have views on it. But certain basic and fundamental things would not be done. So, Linda, I hope I have given some clarity, and I thank you for bringing this up, because I think it's an important point that needs to be raised. But before I go, I just want to say to you, I heard you being described as an NNP media person who I don't know. I've never seen your application, so I'm still waiting for it, because I know when we were in government we had problem with you. So it seems like, but that's a good place to be. When one is in government, they have problems with you. When they're in opposition, they don't have too much problems with you. That tells me something. You are in the same vein of the Leslie Perry and the Alistair Hughes, and that's a good pathway to be. Take care. All the best.
All right, Linda, we'll come back. Okay, Linda, we'll come back to you again if we do have the time. You know, interestingly, I was just as we were wrapping up this with Linda, I am almost certain, and I want the engineers to probably give me a signal on this. I'm almost certain that I saw a hand clap, not a raised hand, but from Hamlet. I am almost certain I saw a hand clap from Hamlet. Hamlet, are you there? And do you have a question, Hamlet?
That was a raised hand, not a hand clap.
You're okay, you're there. Good morning, Hamlet. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
All right, nice to What's that?
Good morning to Dr. Mitchell.
All right.
Morning, Hamlet. Morning, you're alive?
I'm kicking too, I hope.
The floor is yours, my brother.
Huh?
I said the floor is yours.
Talking about the CBI,
Yes.
recent project in liver that your government approved and this government seemed to embrace. At this stage, do you have confidence in that project? Do you have confidence in that project going through?
Well, as you know, when you're talking about major development projects, you always have to be cautious. All I can say is that the investors seem to have resources, because I know they have spent quite a bit of resources already, and they seem to be pursuing some of the things that they indicate that they will do, albeit slower than we had expected. So I am in mixed feeling. I can't say one way or the other whether in fact that project will be completed as planned, because there's an enormous amount of things that they have indicated that they will do. So I hope and pray for the country's sake, and I don't care which government is in office. If NDC is in office as they are now, and this project come true, to me, Grenadians are the ones who will benefit. So if the government benefit also, that's okay with me, because country comes first before any political party. So that is my position. I am not prepared to swear, but at the same time, I'm hopeful that this project will continue.
In terms of the Tubular Bay project,
Yes.
The issue of the arbitration,
Yes.
of course, you've criticized the way the government has handled this.
Yes.
What are you proposing? They should have gone through the arbitration?
Yeah, well, clearly we were at the arbitration, because we didn't initiate arbitration. You know. It was the investor that did, because the facts can be borne out. I mean, I could give you a tidbits of what the Tubular Bay development project initiated in 2016. Because you have to say how much applications, CBI applicants you need to get the resources. They were supposed to get, the project was supposed to be $52.5 million US, and 150 CBI application would have done that. In 2017, the Tubular Bay Development requested an expansion of the project to US $99 million, which means 272 CBI applications. So there was a change from 15 to 17. In October 2017, the escrow accounts requirement was put in place. In 2020, the Tubular Bay Development Project, now renamed Kawana Bay Development, notifies CBS committee that it want to downgrade the project, which means that they're not planning to go to the level that they're talking about. By August 2020, the Kawana Bay Development did not put the escrow account in place, but requested an expansion to the project again. In September 2020, Kawana Bay requested an increased budget of $105.1. Remember, the project started at $52.1 million US. They then requested up to $99 million US, and now they're asking for $105.1 million. So in November 2020, they requested a further budget increase to 110 point, that was the thing growing, well, geometrically or arithmetically, or whatever you want to put it, citing increase in costs. So if you cite an increase in costs, the government clearly would have to ensure that you are justifying this. So in 2020, the CBI committee, which of course arm of the government, advised the organization that an engineer would evaluate the work, an independent engineer, and the cost of the project. The engineer reported that the estimated construction cost was, what he estimated based on what was done, was $47.4 million. In effect, he's saying he cannot justify the rationale behind the increase, because that was the level of the work that was done. In 2021, the CBI committee advised the organization that there were concerns about the project, including two companies, Grenco Limited from BVI and Tubular Services Limited, to which monies collected from the applications of government CBI program were being sent to. In other words, we are supposed to be funding activities of True Development Project, or Kawanebi Development renamed. But we noticed two other organizations, monies were taken from our CBI passport services to those organizations. So the question, therefore, is who are these organizations, and is the investment in Grenada? And that was quite concerning to us. In June 2021, the company, instead of coming and justifying or saying the engineer was wrong and they would then debate it, they filed an arbitration claim before the ICID. So you see where we were? So my view is, since we had our facts, since the numbers we are now articulating is showing that we were justified in having concerns, we didn't get rid of them. I believe that the investment through the arbitration should have been utilized. But the government, clearly, I don't know for whatever reason, I don't know who lawyer is representing True Blue Bay Development, whoever that lawyer is, maybe he had influence in the government or in the institution, and therefore they decided to not continue with the arbitration. And my view, therefore, almost saying that they're going to meet the request. I hope that's not what they meant, but it could be something like this. And that is why we are where we are today. So I don't even know if the Prime Minister or whoever understand the implication of what he is doing. It's always to try to, it might be good to imply that the NNP did something wrong, because I think that's the purpose. But forget NNP. What about Grenada? Is this action I'm taking, will it benefit Grenada? Is it in interest of Grenada or interest of whoever? I don't know. Yes, I'm letting
the issue of the escrow account.
Yes.
My understanding is that they were allowed to have one outside of the country. Is that correct, from your knowledge?
I'm not aware of that. I'm not saying it's not, so I don't. It's possible, but I can't verify this.
Hamlet, just let me let you know that I only allowed you that third question, sir, because Dr. Mitchell said, "Go ahead, Hamlet." All right, so I don't want anybody to think I have different ways of dealing with them and you, right?
Yeah, but just one quick thing, another question.
Yes.
I know we're on another time,
yes.
And folks are here. Dr. Mitchell had said at the beginning that he's not afraid to answer any questions.
Yes,
we've been trying to get him to do an interview, and when there's more time, because I don't want to hog anybody's time, and we hope he can come here to do a full interview with us. We'll give him a full hour.
Well, don't ask me about my private life.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine.
Well, I'm telling you, I have experience.
No.
I'm telling you, you have to have control over those whom you put in place to ask questions.
Who is going to do the interview, Hamlet?
Well, I'll decide that internally, but I mean, I want a commitment from Dr. Mitchell.
Well, I'm not Dr. Mitchell's manager, so I guess you'd have to speak to his manager.
Not only that, he used to be talking to me. I don't know why he's afraid to talk to me. I remember, my private life is pretty straightforward. It's not very complex.
Yeah. So I guess, Hamlet, what the goodly gentleman is saying, give him a call. You there?
Yes.
I will give another call.
Yeah, whatever it is, give him a call.
Call me.
Okay?
All right.
Have a nice day, brother. Take care of yourself. We have not had any from GBN, neither from Shaggy. Shaggy, good morning to you. MTV News, I haven't seen you raise that hand. Linda has her hand up, so I am going to go to Linda, and if any other entity would like to raise a hand while Linda is going ahead, I'll be happy to accommodate you after Linda. Linda, to you, one question.
Thank you. My question is, can Dr. Mitchell give us a status on the Public Accounts Committee of the Lower House, and at the same time explain what borrowing at the end of the budget, the estimate when it's presented, there is also that budget authorization, and then last week we would have seen another budget authorization. So can you just explain what's the difference between the two and the status of the Public Accounts Committee?
Well, as you know, I was named chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, but no discussion was held with me. Announcement was made, and made chairman. Turns out that in keeping to the spirit of the announcement on the composition of the Public Accounts Committee, no senators. The Public Accounts Committee is supposed to be comprised of members of the lower house. But because the NNP had a 15-seat majority in 1999, we tried to say, well, look, we still need an accounts committee, and therefore that's how we incorporated through Parliament. But the government come into office now and decided they're going to just forget what was traditionally accepted since 1999 and before 1999, and had senators. In fact, 2 senators were on that. So I basically raised objection, and I can't tell you at this point in time who are the present members of the. I'm waiting for a final decision as far as the composition of that Public Accounts Committee. And in any event, we need to have reports from the Director of Audit and the Ministry of Finance of accounts that has to be audited and, of course, presented to the Public Accounts Committee for us to hold a meeting of that committee. So I'll await any decision from the Parliament, and I hope I'm accurate with what I've indicated here. I can just say what I think I learned from what has taken place so far.
Thanks, Linda. We go back now to Nancy McGuire. Nancy, good morning again.
Hi, good morning again. I wonder if Dr. Keith, if you can elaborate, excuse me, on what you're seeing happening with the Amani program. There are some statements that you had Amanis in, like, for example, Extension Division in the Ministry of Agriculture that shouldn't have been there, and they're moving them around. Do you have any feelings about what's really happening to that program?
Well, the truth is, Nancy, this government has not been good at providing information, being transparent about what they're doing. A lot of the things I get, these sort of rumors that you hear being said by Imanis themselves who come to you and complaining of how they've been treated. In some cases, as I said, the stipend have been reduced without any explanation. Some have been asked to stay home for a period of time and so on. So it's something, I think, what I try to do, Nancy, is to ask a lot of questions, and they force the government to answer. So it seems like that's an area I may have to ask another question, but you know some of the issues related to that. So I cannot give you any absolute facts. All I know, there's serious concern, and a lot of the young people, many of them I may assume voted for this government, are now absolutely upset with what is taking place as far as their future is concerned.
Nancy, do you have another one? Nancy, do you have another one?
Yes, I can have one. Let me think for a second. Oh, yes. Sorry. On the debt to GDP ratio, I know you expressed concern about how it could get worse with all this extra borrowing. How much time do you think it is before it's going to get to these, this critical stage? Thank you.
Well, for one, the debt to GDP ratio is a ratio, and it says what it is. So if you increase your debt and your GDP has not grown correspondingly so, and the GDP is based on sum total of all activities of the country over a particular period, it would mean that that ratio would get bigger and bigger because the numerator is getting bigger and the denominator is not growing correspondingly so. And that is why I'm making the point. This idea of going to borrow $100 million US from Saudi Arabia, and I try to explain to the government that the GCF, the Green Climate Fund, because of the way we have been involved in that activity, climate change, generally speaking, and the leadership of Simon Steele would have earned him a top job at the United Nations. We are able to get commitments for grant support for the same activities that the government is now thinking of going to Saudi Arabia. The parliament has now approved it because they had the numbers. So I don't know when that actual loan will come, but I don't think Saudi Arabia is giving grant. The Prime Minister brings, the government, sorry, the President Minister of Finance brings the motion to raise $100 million loan. He does not explain anything. He doesn't say what the interest rate is, how long the money is for, and the terms for the loan. But the Prime Minister gets up and he says, afterwards, I understand that he's hoping to get not only loan, grant and loan, or maybe grant, That's a wish thing. You can't be bringing something to the cabinet, to the parliament, passing it for one thing and saying you expect and you hope. That's a hope. But again, the lack of experience, the ignorance I see displayed at the expense of the country is frightening, because I'm quite sure that if those who brought this to Parliament had asked a question of members of their own party who served in government before, they would have advised them properly. I am not even sure that the officers in the Ministry of Finance has been involved, because they ought to know better. So I don't know. This is a lot. There's a lot of gray areas. I am worried, Nancy, and that. So if that loan comes through, then it become, you're talking about a debt of over 270 million EC dollars. That means that the debt, the numerator of that ratio goes up by that amount. So the GDP would have to increase by even more than that to compensate for that debt. And there's no way. You know what's happening in the country. GDP is based on activities. A lot of the projects that we had in place have been stopped. There's confusion and melee up in Molyneux, in my constituency, that nothing has moved on that project. If anything, the project is in worse shape today than it was when we left office, because they went and interfered with the top side, which is all gravel, against the advice of the consultants, Beston, that they got rid of and have to return and have to beg back to come back. And the Woking River Road, a major project, has been stopped for a while. They now have to restart it. So a lot of the activities that NNP has have not been continued. They stop and you ask them sometimes, why did you stop the project? The truth is, I have not really got, in many cases, a sufficient answer. All kinds of rationale have been given. So I am saying the GDP cannot be seen as growing the way to compensate for the loans that are being applied for. I can't say it has been received yet, so I don't know. But I'm very concerned. I have to strike the alarm, and I have to inform the nation. That's my fundamental responsibility. Because while some of them in government may not understand the implications, those of us who have been in government before, and as I mentioned, I keep saying again, there are a lot of members of their own party who are not in parliament, but who are in government. And if they bring them on board for advice, I think they would advise them differently.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Thank you very much, Dr. Mitchell. I see we have Hamlet raising that hand again. So here's what's going to happen. Hamlet, we're gonna come to you for one question, Hamlet. You are going to be given that opportunity, one question, and no sneaking in another. And then I will do the final question, and then we'll wrap up. Hamlet, let's go with you, brother. Do we have him there?
Sorry, I'm talking away and I'm mute. I'm sorry. My bad. On technology. Dr. Mitchell, based on your own assessment in this last hour,
yes,
I think it's fair to say that you've given this government a failing grade.
Oh, well, clearly. I mean, if I do anything else, they would fire me as a grader. I would be fired.
So it means you have to get your party ready to govern again. What are you doing to get your party ready to govern again?
Somebody
It's
asked a
things like
question. Maybe you missed that question.
well, yeah, maybe
Somebody asked a question about the level of organization, and we said we are not.
is a convention at hand or anything like that?
Nah, convention is just part of that process. It seems like some people's concentration is convention.
But Dr. Mitchell, to be fair to the nation, Dr. Mitchell.
You asked me a question. Let me answer.
No,
All I'm hearing from Hamlet, all I'm hearing from certain people. When is the convention?
And
I'm saying the convention.
Let Dr. Mitchell answer you, please.
No, Andre.
Yeah, but hold on, Hamlet. If you
What's wrong
ask
with
him,
that?
hold on, Hamlet. If you ask him a question and he's trying to answer, and you keep cross-questioning while he tries to answer, then my program here now will sound confusing. Hold on, Hamlet, please. Please, Mr. Mark. Mr. Mark. Mr. Mark, yes, I know how the thing goes, but guess what? I'm wearing a different shoe today. So, Mr. Mark, can you please allow him to answer?
Andre, stop that.
I know how to turn down the volume and talk, you
My
know.
own credibility, Andre, stop that.
No, it's not about credibility. I'm saying to you, if he's answering you, then you allow him to answer, and then I'll probably give you...
I'm trying to focus the discussion. Come on, Andre.
That's not a discussion, Hamlet. That's an argument.
Andre, you do that all the time in your station. That's fine.
Okay, Hamlet, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm being nice. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Hamlet.
Andre.
Go ahead.
Hamlet, go ahead.
Doc, sorry, but Andre just get me upset.
I like to see two media men fight. I love that.
This is Andre's absolute nonsense and BS. Yes, Dr. Michel, I was asking. And organizing a party and a convention is a crucial part of that whole discussion.
Yes.
Isn't it? And why it's so upsetting to you?
So, no, you found I was upset? No.
You say
No, I wasn't upset. I was giving you what appears to be the process. You have to organize your party before you go to a convention. The convention is a final event, right? So, especially when you're talking about probably changing of the guard, and that's possible. So the organization must be in place, and the executive of the party, the leadership of the party makes that decision. But I get the impression that some people, they believe that one of us or two of us in a party makes the decision on the date for a convention. When the general secretary and the organization of the party reports that we have the party groups are in place, with the officers and so on, and structure in place, then we will proceed to a convention. But we would not be moved and to have a convention because some people's personal interest is behind a convention. The party has been successful.
Can you come to argue, Dr. Mitchell, that some people's personal interest is against a convention too?
No. Those who, because the party, don't forget, the party is the one who makes the decision. Some people outside the party wants to make a decision for the party. The party has been successful without these forces that want to push it in one direction. It's been 30 odd years of success, Hamlet. 15 seats 3 times. And the party does not need the advice of some of those who tell it what to do. The leadership of the party will make that decision, and it will not be moved by elements who want to see destruction. We will not be moved. We will do what we have to do with delegates of the party who has been successfully helping us over the years. We have people who have left our party before the party became stronger. So I'm not worried about our party. We will do what we have to do. And I am not upset. Maybe you might be more upset than me. But I am not upset because I firmly believe the NPP in a good position to do what is right. We lost the election because we failed ourselves on the ground. If we go to any serious activity without reorganizing our party and preparing the party properly on the ground, we will be failing our delegates and failing our institution.
If elections are called tomorrow, then you're not ready.
Well, you could say we're not ready. Well, listen. Our election was called before when people were not expected. You got ready? you may not be 90% or 100% the way you want to be, but you have to be probably more ready than anybody else, and you're still in good place. But
thank you very much, Mr. Mark. It's about coming.
I
Thank you
will
very
never-
much, Mr. Mark. It's coming to that time when I have to wrap up. I apologize, and let's hope we can connect another time, okay?
Thank you very much, sir.
And
Thank
Hamlet,
you.
we
Have a
will,
nice
we'll have an opportunity. You said you'll call.
Yeah, you have to
I'll
call.
hear you.
I'll call you.
All right, okay.
Normally, at most press conferences, Dr. Mitchell, that you will attend, they'll probably say, well, Dr. Mitchell, you can have the last say. No, I'm going to have the last question, so you'll have the answer, of course. It'll be your last say still. And I could not come here this morning, sir, and not speak to security, and not speak to security as it relates to the country's image and to the whole issue as it relates to Janti and what has happened and what is transpiring. And it seems that if we going forward, then we drawn back. What's your take on the whole Janti situation and our security, sir?
Well, my concern is about what we see happening today, the amount of murders that's been occurring in a very quick pace of time must concern every citizen. It has to be concerning to the government, I would hope. It could be concerning to all sectors of the society. And what is frightening is there's a muted thing going on in the country as far as these incidents are concerned. Someone is killed under strange circumstances. Rumors are plastering the ground about who may be involved, but not a word from the police, not a word from the Ministry of National Security. It must be concerning to us. I have written, I'm not just talking, the Janti thing is a clear case, but there are others. The death in Telescope, there are others in different areas, at least 4 of them. Strange circumstance, the death of the client daughter. All these things are on people's lips outside and they're concerned. These things never happened before. And the question is, what are we doing to solve it? Because especially when some of them are given international publicity, the image of the country is at stake. And I find the fact that you're hearing nothing, Andrew, is quite worrying to me. And I took the pains and I went and wrote a letter, open letter to the Prime Minister. And I did it so because I wanted the public to know that was written. I heard nothing. I said, look, it is not the first time it has happened. I offered advice to ask the British Scotland Yard to come in and investigate. Could ask the FBI, both of them or one of them. And I'm pretty sure, if the government is the one who has to ask, that we will be able, because it's clear, people have lost confidence in the present leadership of the police force. There's no question about it. The fact that the commissioner was just moved, although there were all kinds of excuses for the removal, and many of the top officers have been moved in different positions and people are frightened to even speak to people, is worrying to us as a country as a whole. So because way back in the 60s, there was a certain gentleman who was killed here in Grenada, a British citizen, and they appear not to be making progress. The government then called on the British intelligence and they got Scotland Yard to come in. So there is a precedent for this. Scotland Yard came in and were able to solve the murder and made recommendation to the country. So I don't understand why it is that we can't bring in some foreign experts, because people are not, right now, they have lost confidence in what exists in the police force at this particular time to deal with some of these vexing crimes. And if people can feel that lack of safety, it will affect investment, it will affect how people see the country. And as a citizen of this country and a former prime minister, and of course leader of the opposition, I must express those views.
Dr. Mitchell, I take this opportunity to thank you very much for giving us all the information that you gave us this morning. Also, I take the opportunity to say thanks to all those, Mr. Hamlet Mark, Ms. Linda Straker, Ms. Nancy McGuire, for being a part of this exercise this morning. The important thing is that Dr. Mitchell did say that he's hoping to make this a once a month activity, but I'd like to quickly sneak one in here. Sir, is once a month activity, is it going to be Dr. Mitchell always, or are there going to be other members of your party?
Other members would be involved.
Other members of the
Yes,
party
very
will be
much,
involved.
yes.
Great. And so, in case you did not know, and you did mention him, I dare say in passing, but it's very important because it was under the whole security aspect. You did mention about the young man in telescope.
Yes.
I believe that the funeral is today.
Yes.
And we take this opportunity to extend sympathies to the family members, the relatives, the friends, and other neighbors in the telescope area. We understand your loss. We feel your loss. And we are there with you. And we wish you God's greatest comfort at this particular point in time. So, as I said, it's time for me to say goodbye again, and thank you guys so much. Thanks to the technical team, Nazim Benjamin and Sheldon Scott. Thank you so very much. The members of the office management team led by Marcella Campbell. Thank you so much for everything that you guys would have done to make this possible on this morning. Take care. God bless, and hope to see you pretty soon. Bye now.